Only 12 human beings in the history of our planet have ever stood on the surface of another world. 12. Out of more than 100 billion people who have ever lived on Earth, only a dozen souls have felt the lunar dust beneath their boots, looked up, and seen our entire world. Every war, every ocean, every person they have ever loved, reduced to a single pale blue marble hanging in the black. And right now, for the first time in over 50 years, NASA is preparing to send humans back. The question is, what does that actually feel like? Not the highlight reel, not the press conference smiles. The real thing, the fear, the silence, the impossible beauty, and the moments when everything could go terribly wrong. Let's start where every astronaut's journey to the moon truly begins, not at the launch pad, but years before, in a process so brutal it filters out nearly everyone who tries. To even be considered for a lunar mission under NASA's Artemis program, you need to have logged hundreds of hours in high-performance jets, hold an advanced degree in a STEM field, and pass one of the most demanding physical and psychological evaluations ever designed. But here's what the application process doesn't fully prepare you for. Once you're selected, training for a moon mission takes years. Astronauts train underwater in NASA's Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, a pool so large it holds 6.2 million gallons of water to simulate the weightlessness of space. They practice geological fieldwork in the deserts of Arizona. They run emergency procedures so many times that their hands can execute them in total darkness, under pressure, without a single conscious thought. Every scenario you can imagine, and several you probably can't, has been rehearsed. Because in space, hesitation costs lives. Then the day arrives. Launch morning is something astronauts describe in ways that almost contradict each other. There is calm. There is terror. There is a strange sense of unreality, like watching yourself from outside your own body. You've been awake since before dawn. You've eaten a carefully controlled meal. You've suited up in a process that takes over an hour and involves another person checking every seal, every valve, every connection on your suit. And then you walk out. The crowd cheers. Cameras flash. You raise your hand and wave, and somewhere in your chest there is this quiet knowledge that you might not come back. The rocket beneath you for an Artemis lunar mission, the Space Launch System, is the most powerful rocket NASA has ever built. It produces 8 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. When those engines ignite, you don't just hear it. You feel it in your spine, in your teeth, in the fluid behind your eyes. Within seconds, you're moving faster than you've ever moved in your life. Within 2 minutes, the solid rocket boosters separate and fall away into the ocean. Within 8 minutes, you are in orbit. The sky outside your window has gone from blue to black, and the Earth below you is already curving away at the edges. But the moon is still 3 days away. The transit to the moon is one of the most psychologically complex experiences any human being can have. You are traveling roughly 240,000 miles from the only planet that has ever supported life. The silence outside the spacecraft is absolute. Space has no medium for sound to travel through, so the universe beyond your hull is perfectly, completely quiet. Inside, you hear the hum of systems, the quiet exchange of words with your crew, and the occasional crackle of communication with Mission Control in Houston. You sleep in shifts. You exercise to prevent muscle atrophy. You eat food from pouches. And you float. Weightlessness is not what movies make it look like. In the early hours, it is nauseating. Your body's vestibular system, the inner ear mechanism that tells you which way is up, becomes completely confused. About 60 to 80% of astronauts experience space motion sickness. It passes, usually within 2 or 3 days. But in the meantime, you're managing nausea while also performing critical mission tasks, while also trying to sleep in a small berth with no real up or down, while also processing the fact that you can look out the window and watch the Earth grow smaller every hour. And then, on the third day, the moon fills your window. Every astronaut who has described this moment struggles to find words. The moon from orbit is nothing like the moon seen from Earth. It has no atmosphere, so there is no softening of light, no haze. The shadows are absolute. The craters are stark and ancient and enormous. The surface is a shade of gray that seems to absorb light rather than reflect it. It is, by any measure, beautiful. It is also completely, profoundly hostile to human life. Now for those of you who have made it this far, thank you. If this is the kind of content that makes you lean forward, hit that subscribe button and drop a like. It genuinely helps this channel reach people who love real, deep stories like this one. And here's something to think about for the comment section. If you could go to the moon knowing there was a real chance you wouldn't come back, would you go? Leave your answer below. The responses to that question are always extraordinary. Back to the mission. Lunar descent is arguably the most dangerous phase of the entire journey. The spacecraft must slow itself precisely using rocket engines, guided by onboard computers and the crew, descending toward a surface with no air to create drag, no runway, and no margin for significant error. During Apollo 11 in 1969, Neil Armstrong's computer triggered alarms during final descent, alarms that had never appeared in training. The crew had to make a real-time decision: abort or continue. They continued. They landed with less than 30 seconds of fuel remaining. Modern Artemis missions use far more advanced guidance systems, but the fundamental challenge remains the same. You are landing a spacecraft on an alien world with a communication delay that makes real-time assistance from Earth limited, and you are doing it for the first time as a crew. Nothing fully prepares you for the moment of actual touchdown. Astronauts report a sudden jarring stillness. After days of constant vibration and movement, everything stops. The engines cut, and outside the window, the moon is simply there, waiting. Walking on the moon is physically demanding in ways that surprise even veteran astronauts. The lunar suit used in Artemis missions, the XEMU, or Exploration Extravehicular Mobility Unit, weighs about 300 pounds on Earth. On the moon, lunar gravity is 1/6 of Earth's, so effectively you feel about 50 pounds of suit weight. But it still limits your mobility. Bending, reaching, kneeling, these are all planned, deliberate movements. Communication happens through systems built into the helmet. And the suit itself is your entire life support. It manages your oxygen, your temperature, your pressure. A significant suit breach on the surface is a lethal event within minutes. Now, what if something goes wrong? This is the question that NASA engineers, flight surgeons, and mission planners spend enormous resources trying to answer, because in space, the list of things that can go wrong is long, and some of them have no good solution. If an astronaut is injured on the lunar surface, a broken bone, a serious medical event, the options are extremely limited. There is no hospital. There is no surgical team on standby. The crew carries a medical kit and has received training in emergency procedures. But the reality is that a severe injury on the moon means evacuation as quickly as possible, with a 3-day journey home even if everything goes perfectly. If the ascent vehicle, the rocket that lifts the crew off the moon and back toward the orbiting spacecraft, fails to ignite, the crew cannot leave. NASA has backup systems, redundant ignition mechanisms, and procedures designed around this scenario. But this is the scenario that mission planners call non-survivable. There is no rescue vehicle. There is no second option. In 1969, President Nixon had a speech prepared in the event that Armstrong and Aldrin could not leave the moon. That speech was never delivered, but it existed. If a major life support failure occurs inside the habitat during an extended lunar surface stay, the kind planned for later Artemis missions, the crew must execute emergency procedures in minutes, not hours. Pressure loss, fire, carbon dioxide buildup. Each has a specific protocol. Astronauts know these protocols the way musicians know scales. They don't think about them. They execute them. And yet, and this is the thing that every astronaut seems to agree on, the risk does not make it less worth doing. It makes it more. There is something about standing at the absolute edge of what human beings can survive and choosing to step forward anyway that speaks to something fundamental about who we are as a species. We have always walked toward the horizon, even when we couldn't see what was on the other side. The astronauts going to the moon in 2026 know the risks. They have read the accident reports. They have trained for the scenarios that end badly. They have had quiet conversations with their families that most of us will never hear, and they are going anyway. Because when you stand on the surface of the moon and turn around, and you see the Earth, small and blue and impossibly fragile against the blackness of everything else, something changes in you. Every astronaut who has been to space and looked back at our planet describes a shift in perspective so profound. It has its own name, the overview effect. The borders disappear. The conflict seems small. What remains is this awareness that we are all, every one of us, living on the same small world together. That might be the most important thing any astronaut brings back from the moon. Not the rocks, not the data, not the photographs, but the view and what it does to a human heart.